Do you get tired of working with form views in Rails? Well, check out this gem called Formtastic. This provides a nice, convenient, and concise way to generate forms in Rails. As you can see, here's a complex form, and it's created with very little code. Pretty awesome. So to get started, if you are running TextMate, you want to check out the Formtastic TextMate bundle, which you can check out on the README here, which I'll link to in the show notes. And the bundle provides a number of nice snippets which can make form building easier. To demonstrate Formtastic, I'll be generating a new application from scratch. I'll just call it Vet, because this will be basically just a web application to keep track of animal patients for a veterinarian hospital. And so let's go into that and open it up in TextMate. Now you can install Formtastic as a gem, so inside of my environment.rb file, I could just add a line here, config.gem line. Now if you do have the bundle installed, you could just do ft-gem tab, and that will add the Formtastic gem config line in there. And then we can make sure it's installed with rake gems install command. And with that installed, we can now start building our application. So I'm going to use mostly my nifty generators to generate some quick scaffolding. So I'll link to this in the show notes, but we'll just generate a nifty layout first, which will be the application layout file. Now next I want to generate a category model because I want to have pets assigned to a given category. So let's do a nifty scaffolding here. So we'll have a model called category, and then we'll just give it a name, and how about a description column. And then let's not forget to migrate the database. So now if we start up our application, we have some basic scaffolding here. So if we go to create a new category, you can see we have a form here, but this form is generated by the scaffolding, which is the traditional Rails way, and not using Formtastic. So let's take a look at the code. So as you can see here in the form view, we have a couple fields, and it's a pretty traditional form for call in Rails. Now the nice thing about Formtastic is that all of these old methods just work like normal. It doesn't override any of this. So it just provides some alternative methods so you can use Formtastic where it fits best. So let's use it here. And to do that, I'm just going to erase all of these fields inside of here. And I'm going to change this form4 call to semantic form4. And then we'll add a couple methods calls in here. One is called inputs, and one is called buttons. Now, as you probably guessed, the inputs method is just a convenient way for generating form fields for all of the model's attributes at one time. And the buttons is just a convenient way for creating the submit button. So now when we go back to our application, hit reload, well, things look quite a bit different than they did before, and they don't look quite the way we want them. But this is where style sheets come in. We can stylize this and make it look exactly the way we want. Fortunately, we don't have to go through all that trouble because Formtastic comes with some existing style sheets which you can generate. So we could just call script generate Formtastic style sheets, if I can spell it right. And that will just create a couple additional style sheets for us, which we can then include in our layout file. So here's what my layout file currently looks like. As you can see, I'm including one style sheet so far, just the application CSS file. So let's add the two which were generated, one called Formtastic, and another called Formtastic Changes, which is designed where you can add your own custom changes and customize the way Formtastic alters the forms. Now, if you're including multiple style sheets or JavaScript files like this at a time in your global layout file, you might as well add some caching using the cache option, and let's just give it a name called base. So this way it'll group all these files into one base.css file in production mode so that it doesn't have to include multiple files and use up separate connections through the browser. So now when I reload the page again, it looks a little bit better, but it's not quite the way it's supposed to look. And this is a little gotcha I ran into, and the problem is actually something in my layout file. And the issue has to do with the HTML tag inside of my layout file. Formtastic expects there to be an XML/NS attribute on this HTML tag. So this is really more of a problem with my layout file because this attribute should be there anyway. But if you do run into display issues with the style sheets not working properly with Formtastic, just make sure that attribute exists. And now we reload one more time, and there we go, things are lined up a little bit better. So let's add a few categories here. Canine. That's man's best friend. Let's create this category. And let's add a new category for feline. Cuddly but deadly. There we go. Now let's try making a little bit more of a complex form where we're inputting animal records. So let's use my nifty scaffold generator again. Make a model called animal, and we'll give it a name. And how about a category ID integer column, because this belongs to a category a given animal does. And we want, let's say, a born on date field, and how about a female, a Boolean column. So this way we can specify what the gender is. And then we migrate our database. And we'll need to set up our association. So a given animal belongs to a category, and a category has many animals. Now here's what the form looks like that was generated by the scaffolding, but we want to use Formtastic here, so let's edit the view. So let's repeat what we did before. We have the semantic form4 method instead of the normal form4. And then we can call f.inputs, but this just handles all the inputs at one time. Instead, I want to break this down because I'm going to customize how the individual behavior is for each input. So to do that, instead you can actually pass a block. And this way, all the inputs are grouped into a field set. So each of the different inputs, one is the name, and one is the born at, and one is category, and one is female. All right, so you use the input method on the form builder when you're creating inputs, and you just pass in the column name or attribute to it. And we also want our buttons. There we go. Now when we reload the page here, we get an exception. So it looks like I misnamed the column there. So actually what I want is back in the form view is born on, not born at. So let's try reloading again. And there we go. Now we have name, born on, category, and female checkbox here. So notice the category select menu is automatically generated by Formtastic. It automatically knew that category was an association, so it created the select menu for us and automatically filled it in with the category's name and so on. But let's customize this because, for example, born on, we can't go in the past and we need to choose a year that's in the past. And I also want to use radio buttons instead of a checkbox for the gender here. So to customize this, you can basically pass in the same kind of options you would to the Rails helper method. So the date option, you can say start year and specify, let's just say 1900 for now. The category, this is a collection select basically, so there's the include blank option. Let's set it to false. So that way it doesn't show a blank option when we're selecting a category. And then the female checkbox here. Well, if you want to specify a different type of field instead of the one that's default, you can use the as option that Formtastic provides, and there's a number of different options here. One is radio. So now when we hit reload, we have the born on year starts at 1900, our category, there's no blank select, and we have radio buttons now for specifying the gender. However, the radio buttons aren't quite the behavior I'm looking for. What I really want to do is have this call gender and have male and female radio button options. So can we get that kind of customization here? Well, yes, we can actually. There's a label option, and we could just specify this as gender. And Formtastic also provides a collection option, which you can use to manually specify which collection options there should be. So let's say male, and make this false as a value, and female as true. And there we go. And now when we hit reload, check that out. That's pretty awesome. Now our label is gender, and we have male and female checkboxes or radio buttons which behave as expected. So let's try this out. Let's just create a quick animal. He's a very old kitty. I don't know what year actually. And it's a male and it's a feline. There we go. And it works. Now we can easily create as many animals as we want. So we've successfully created a fairly complex form without very much code. This is all it took to create all those form fields and add all the customizations we needed. So Formtastic is really nice because it gives us some nice conventional way to create form fields and then gives us the options to break those conventions when we need to and customize our form fields to a full extent. Now there's still quite a bit of Formtastic which I have not covered here, so I'll be going more in depth in the next episode, so check that out next week.